Has the bottom finally arrived? If you've been waiting for the Fraser Valley housing market to finally turn around, you might be disappointed by what the July numbers are telling us. Because this market still isn't giving buyers or sellers certainty they've been hoping for. So what's really going on? If we haven't met before, I'm Greg with the Holmes Real Estate Team. Every month we break down what's happening in the Fraser Valley real estate market, not just the numbers, but what they actually mean if you're thinking about buying or selling. So let's take a look at July. So, are homes actually selling? This is probably the biggest question people are asking. The answer is yes, homes are selling every day, but they're selling much more slowly than they were just a few years ago. In fact, July sales were actually lower than July of last year. Now you might be thinking, didn't we already have a slow market last year? Exactly. Last year was already one of the slowest years we've seen in decades. So seeing sales dip again tells us buyers are still being very cautious. They're taking more time, they're looking at more homes, they're negotiating harder, in many cases, they're waiting. So what about prices? Well, this is the headline that everyone watches. Prices have continued to soften across much of the Fraser Valley, not dramatically, but enough that sellers need to pay attention. Now you might be wondering, does this mean my home has lost value? Not necessarily. Every neighborhood is different. Every property is different. Some homes are still selling very well. Others are sitting because they're competing against more inventory than we've seen in quite some time. And today's buyers have choice. And all that means pricing accurately has become more important than ever. So, what's keeping this market stuck? This is the part I find interesting. I actually don't think prices is the biggest issue right now. I think it's confidence. People are asking questions like what's happening with tariffs and when's the economy going to turn around and will interest rates change again? Should we wait? When people feel uncertain, they often postpone major decisions. Buying or selling a home is one of those biggest decisions a family can make. So uncertainty naturally slows the market. Now you might be wondering, should I wait? This is probably the question we hear most often, and the answer isn't the same for everyone. If you're only trying to perfectly time the market, you're probably going to be disappointed. Nobody exactly knows when the market reaches the bottom or when it's going to start climbing again. But if your move is driven by life, maybe your family's growing, or maybe you're downsizing, or maybe you're relocating for work, then waiting for the perfect market often isn't the most important factor. Making the right move for your family is. So what are we watching? Well, there's a few things we're paying attention to over the next few months. Buyers' confidence, interest rates, inventory levels, and the broader economy. Because I think those factors will influence the market far more than any single monthly statistic. 1 month doesn't make a trend, but over several months in a row, now that's something we pay attention to. And one thing we've learned after helping Fraser Valley buyers and sellers for over 17 years is this. The market usually doesn't change when everyone expects it to. By the time people feel confident again, the market has already started moving. That's why we encourage clients not to base every decision based on their headlines. Instead, focus on your goals, your timeline, and what makes the most sense for your family. Those things matter much more than trying to perfectly predict the next few months. So before we wrap this up, what are we going to be watching over the next month? There are 4 things we're paying particularly close attention to. First, will buyer confidence begin to improve? That's probably the biggest factor in today's market. Second, will inventory continue to build, or will we start seeing fewer new listings? That will have a big impact on competition among sellers. Third, will we continue to see price reductions, or are sellers beginning to price more realistically from day one? That's often one of the earliest signs that a market is starting to stabilize. And finally, will we get more certainty around interest rates, tariffs, and the broader economy? Those aren't real estate statistics, but they influence the confidence people have to make a move. We'll be watching all of these closely over the next month, and we'll let you know what we're seeing in our next Fraser Valley market update. If you found today's market update helpful and you'd like practical advice about buying or selling here in the Fraser Valley, we'd love to have you subscribe to our channel. We publish new videos every week to help homeowners make informed real estate decisions, not just monthly market updates, but advice you can actually use. And if you're wondering what the market trends mean for you and your neighborhood, reach out to us. We'd be happy to have a chat. I'm Greg. Thanks for watching.